What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Most Valuable Podcast. I am Mark Williams with my colleague
Victor Castro.
And we're just two dudes who do real estate for a living. And today, we're going to ask you, the buyer or the seller, to really think and ask yourself, is your agent unethical? Super controversial topic, Victor.
I love it. I love controversy.
But we're going to get right into it. And before we get into the conversation, we just want to say that these opinions are not opinions. We're just going to talk facts. And that's something that Victor and I have pride ourselves on the last 26 podcasts, to just give facts, trying to leave our opinion out of it. And our content is not targeted to other real estate agents. So if you're a real estate agent listening to this, we definitely appreciate you listening and being a part of our audience. And hopefully what we say you can relate to. But our content and the things we talk about are actually targeted towards you, the consumer, the person that's going to be the first-time home buyer, the person that's selling their home for the first time or the second time. Maybe you're the second-time home buyer and you had a terrible experience the first time, and you're just trying to get answers of how things should really be done.
Let's keep it real. We're trying to win over some business here.
Yeah, and our thing is, we do real estate for a living.
Yeah.
We don't do deals, we don't eat.
Exactly.
We got kids, we got babies too, But that being said, let's hop into it, Victor. Are you hiring an ethical agent, or is your current agent unethical? And the thing that sparked this conversation with us was a debate, a friendly debate, definitely professional debate, that you kind of took part in, Victor, on social media.
Yes.
So why don't you talk about what that question was, or that topic was, and we'll dive into it.
Sure. So on social media, I was just minding my own business, scrolling through Instagram like everyone usually does. And I came across this, her name is Lauren. She's a real estate agent.
Yeah, she's a really good agent too.
Really good agent. Yeah. And she asked the question, do you agree with dual agency? What is dual agency?
Yeah, what's dual agency, Victor? Let's get into
dual
that.
agency. It could mean two different things.
Okay.
But she was talking about the type of dual agency where you represent the seller and the buyer in the same transaction.
Well, what's the other way of dual agency?
The other way of dual agency is when the two agents representing the seller and the buyer happen to be working for the same broker. So you and me.
Yeah. Although we're on the same team, we have our different set of clients.
Correct.
Right? And if I, say, have a listing and you have a buyer for that listing, we're doing business. Technically, it's the same company doing business.
Yes.
Where the company is representing both sides, dual agency, although we're separate.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the one way. And then just to clarify, the second way would be it's your listing, you're representing the sellers, and you have the buyers as well.
Yes.
So you're representing both the seller and the buyer on the same transaction.
I am controlling the entire transaction by representing both sides of the transaction.
And that's what this, what Lauren sparked that question.
Yes.
Like, what's your thoughts about the dual agency where you're helping both buyer and seller? She
made it very adamant in her video that she is against it. There's absolutely no way she will do a transaction that represents both seller and buyer at the same time. She feels it's unethical and it shouldn't even be allowed in real estate. That's her argument.
Yes. Okay. So that's her argument. Hey,
to each their own.
Like I said, she's more than welcome to have that opinion. No judgment of her or anything like that.
Yes.
Just restating that again. We're just talking about information because this happens. And we'll go into personal stuff. I've done this a number of times and in different situations too, which we can get into. But she feels that a agent should not be able to represent both the buyer and seller on the same transaction.
Shouldn't be allowed.
You shouldn't be allowed.
Legally.
Okay. and she feels it's unethical, which is a pretty strong word. Like, I'm just being honest. That's pretty strong to generalize a certain instance as someone not being ethical. Like, so my question is, what were the facts that were given of why it's unethical? Not even why they feel it, because if you say something, you gotta have the facts to back it up.
Yeah, and that's how I feel about it. The whole thing. Look, nothing against Lauren, nothing against you, Lauren. If you're
She ain't listening,
chiming in, but
she might. Someone might send it to her.
But at the end of the day, no facts were given to sustain your argument. At the end of the day, nothing was provided. So I feel like I had to chime in. I feel like I was being attacked in a certain way because I've also represented both sides of the transaction. It was my first listing ever that and
on that listing, you had 2 buyers.
I had
for the
2.
same
Yes,
home.
I did.
Okay, and we'll get in.
I almost had a third.
That. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
yes.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, I feel like I did a super ethical job because I presented everything transparently, gave both sides of the transaction the facts and the documentation for them to read. It's not like I'm hiding something. And the transaction closed in a pretty I would say smooth manner. So just because of that, I'm unethical.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to figure out here. I think you made a good point. What was that the first point you said? You said there was a point you made in the debate. Let's just call it debate. And hey, her post was legit because it sparked conversation.
Yes.
Which I like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, more power. Keep posting those things. I love having constructive conversations because it's good to see what the views are of, we're all colleagues. We're all real estate agents, right? And I sure the hell don't want anyone thinking I'm unethical because they may see me have a listing and then maybe their client liked the listing, but I ended up getting a buyer for that. And we'll get into those situations, right? Because I can tell you right now, I'm not here to pass judgment on anybody, but I am definitely not unethical, especially coming from a background where I managed banks for almost 15 years, where ethics is highly scrutinized, where we're background checked quarterly, where our finances are looked into because we're giving financial advice to people. Being a manager during the crash, being in finance from 2000, like managing banks from 2008 to 13 when everyone was losing their jobs and livelihood, like to say I'm unethical because I did a transaction, let's pump the brakes there.
Right.
I sure the hell ain't unethical.
Absolutely. That's how I feel, Mark.
So like I said, making a general statement like that, I'm open ears. I'm down to listen to your facts and your argument, and I can present my facts and argument, and we can debate, and no one is right and no one is wrong. But in this case, calling someone unethical, and that's just us, because I know tons of people in this profession that are super ethical that have done both sides of a transaction. So you can't make those broad, general statements and then feel like everyone's just going to be cool about it. And look, I don't look at that person that made the statement any other way, but I think words are getting confused. There's a difference between being unethical and then unqualified.
Yes.
Right?
I think that's how I took it and I put it in my comment is just because you feel like you can't manage a transaction where you're managing both sides of the transaction, buyers and sellers at the same time, doesn't mean that you're unethical. It might just mean that you're unqualified to be able to do so, or you don't feel like you have the skill set necessary to be able to do so. I feel like I'm super qualified.
And I'm going to say, so if you're listening to this, you might be, and I'm just thinking about what we've been talking about, and let's back it up a little bit.
Yes.
What makes people think that this is an unethical type of transaction? Okay. And the thing is, when we represent buyers, when we represent you, the buyer, as a real estate agent, we have a fiduciary duty to make sure we have your best interest. Let me read what like fiduciary means, right?
The actual definition.
The actual definition. A fiduciary is essentially someone who has a legal or ethical obligation of trust to act in another person's best interest. So essentially, like a lawyer in a criminal civil case is your fiduciary. Your CPA that you hire is a fiduciary duty to make sure that your taxes are done correctly and they're acting on your behalf to make sure that you're benefiting from anything you can benefit from and you're paying your taxes correctly. Your doctor, your dentist, they all have a fiduciary duty because they're acting on your behalf saying, hey, if you don't fix this tooth, Mark, you're going to need to do a root canal and it's going to be worse. Like you're taking their advice. They're giving you honest advice, right? As a real estate agent, it's our duty to make sure that your best interest is what's first and foremost, meaning there's no secret that agents get paid a commission. We get paid a commission to help you buy, and we get paid a commission to help you sell your home. And that commission you cannot feel that commission is put first. And we know that when we hear stories from clients that we've helped or past stories that always complain about agents, they feel that the commission was put in front of their best interests. Granted, those agents were probably unethical, right? So that's the definition of fiduciary. Like we have an ethical reason, we have an ethical duty to make sure that your best interest is first. And the argument is that it's impossible, because this is what it makes it sound. It's impossible for a real estate agent like myself or yourself to be able to have a buyer's best interest and a seller's best interest at the same time, which I can do. It's not impossible. It's very simple.
It's very simple.
And the thing is, because I feel that way, I feel I have the skill set to be able to handle that in a very transparent way, where if you were to ask both parties that were involved, they would not say I'm unethical. They would actually probably say I was extremely ethical and the most thorough person they ever worked with.
And that's exactly the feedback that I received.
You know what I'm saying?
That's the feedback that I received when I did the transaction, the dual agency on that transaction. The feedback was amazing. My clients actually preferred me controlling both sides of the transaction.
Prefer me to. I prefer personally, in my experience, I've personally done, I don't even know how many transactions now, over 100 something, right? Not crazy amount, but for an agent, we're considered high productive agents, right? And in my experience of all my transactions, I have worked with many great agents. I would say 98% of the agents I've done a deal with are amazing, and they deserve to have a real estate license. There are those 2%, though, that I hope they're not in the industry anymore, because they definitely were putting the commission first, right?
Yeah.
But that's with any profession, right? All right. But in my experience, the best person to work with is myself, because I know how thorough I am. I'm on time. I'm a very organized person. And I take extreme pride in my profession. And the reflection of the transaction is a reflection of who I am professionally and personally. And I don't take that lightly. Like I'm one to not work with the client anymore if I feel they're making me look bad.
I'm the same way. I much rather fire the client.
Yeah. I don't want your money. Look, I need to do deals to make money. But I look at the money, I'm paid the money, and I'm well deserved. I always tell people, I think I'm worth more than the percentages we get paid. Right? We have all these agents discounting. I think I'm worth more. However, the money I get paid is based on the service that I provide. I don't think I go into each client trying to prove that what I am charging is not enough. Like, I want my clients to say, I should have paid you more for the amount of work you done to help me. Not, oh man, I had to pay this guy 15 grand. I don't even know what he did. You know?
And the thing, Mark, that's another part of, that was another part of the argument at some point where I was answering or putting my comments. Some other agent mentioned that they felt like you can't negotiate. The only time that, or at the time that you have to negotiate for both, you're essentially negotiating for yourself. And it's like, what do you mean I'm negotiating for myself? It's not my money. It's not my house. I'm just presenting what the client is offering, and I'm like vice versa. So how can I be pushing to negotiate for myself during that time? The negotiation has already been done. I can only negotiate for myself when I'm trying to get your business and to sign the listing agreement or the buyer agreement. Yeah. That's the only time we ever negotiate for ourselves.
Yes.
So I'm sorry, but you're wrong.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you because, and I'm not just look, you know me, Victor. I wouldn't. I push back on your ideas and same vice versa. We have that great working relationship. If I felt the opposite, I would tell you right now on this podcast that I don't agree with you, but I 100% agree with you. And I think that is something that you, the consumer, the buyer, and the seller need to really, if you're working with somebody or you worked with someone in the past or you're looking to work with somebody, that's something you need to really like pay attention to is the agent spending your money as a buyer? Because it's not their money, it's your money, right? Is the agent acting as if the house is theirs? It's not their house, it's your house, the homeowner. They're there to advise you, right? To direct you, to tell you based on experience, based on industry statistics, what it's going to take to buy a home in this market, what it's going to take to sell a home in this market. And then they're supposed to execute that plan and be the leader in that plan. But the ultimate final say in what you sell your home for or what you want to offer for a home and what that offer looks like is your decision, the buyer and the seller. It is not the agent's decision. So the agent, to your point, Victor, is no longer we do not negotiate with the other agent. What we do is we take what the other agent tells. So if we're buying, I'm gonna walk through like helping a buyer. I call we show you the home. You love the home. We do our research on the area. Before we go in the home, you kind of already know from us what the home's gonna take to buy. Like we kind of give you a price range of what things are selling for in that area. That's why we're showing you the home. It's within your budget, right?
Right.
Cool. All right. Then we show the home. You love it. We see what information's on the home. You say, Mark, Victor, I really want to win this home. We said, hey, we want to help you win it. That's what you're hiring us for. Let me find out some more information from the seller agent. We call them. We have a professional conversation. We ask them certain questions to try to gauge interest, try to gain more information, trying to see what their seller wants. We then relay that message to you, the buyer.
And we would say, this is what I would do in your position.
Then the buyer says, okay, what would you do? And we say, this is what we would do in your position. However, it's ultimately your decision because I'm not here to spend your money. It's your money to spend. But based on our experience and our knowledge and the information that we've got and how the market is operating right now, this will increase your probability based on the information we know that you may get your offer accepted. It's never a guarantee, right? Then you go ahead and you confirm what you want to do on that offer. We write it up, we submit it, and we say, hey, this is our client's offer, and whatever details you want us to share, we look forward to working with you. Then it's that selling agent's job to take that offer compared to whatever other offers they got and present that information to their seller.
So let me get this right, Mark. You are essentially a mediator.
Yes.
You're not a negotiator.
No, everyone thinks who are we? Bruce Willis talking someone off a ledge? You know, like
that's a pet peeve.
I'm sorry, it was Samuel L. Jackson,
Right.
I think, was the negotiator in the movie.
But that really is, I mean, it's one of my pet peeves, at least I'll speak for myself, Mark, is seeing, I negotiated this. We're not negotiating. We are mediating for our clients. And I've said we negotiated, but it's the clients. It's not me.
Yeah, we mediated the negotiation.
Yes.
But here's the thing. We also gave recommendations based on experience. So I don't want to say we tell clients what to do, but we say based on experience and based on what we know and being in the industry and what the market is, we can say, hey, right now in this buyer-friendly environment, you can probably ask for X, Y, and Z. Let's do it. I'm comfortable, like I would be comfortable writing that offer for you. I think it's a solid offer. We can also say, I think you're asking a little bit too much. At the end of the day, if that's what you want me to write, I'm going to go ahead and write it. And I'm going to do my best to try to get it accepted. But based on my experience,
it's probably not.
Yeah. That's what we're hired to do, is to advise, not to spend people's money. And we're not there to make the final decisions on what the home should sell for. The seller is the only one that can do that. So let's tie that back into being unethical. And I think there was a quote you made in that debate. You said something about a transaction is never unethical.
Yes.
What was that quote? Or statement you made?
Yeah, statement. So my statement was, there is no such thing as a unethical transaction. There's only unethical agents.
1,000%, bro.
It doesn't matter if there's dual agency involved or not. I can be a very unethical agent if I'm going to say I'm going to do something, but then I go behind your back and I do the complete opposite. Or I, for example, if I'm a listing agent and I have a buddy of mine that I want to get into contract, I want to help, and I don't present the rest of the offers to try to get that. Essentially, there's so many examples I can give, but there's just so many ways that an agent can be unethical, and I feel like it's just, to be able to throw that judgment, like you mentioned, like so broadly, is just it's not fair.
So I'm going to use I just had an example. I'm going to give a couple examples. All right. So stay with me here. I'm going to give a couple examples. In the Bay Area, in certain counties and certain cities, the real estate market is very, very competitive. We've had the privilege to have listings in these cities. Okay. And it is a strategy by buyers to get pre-approved and to go to open houses unrepresented and go straight to the agent that is listing the home and say, hey, we would like to buy this home. Can you represent us? These buyers are doing this because they think they're going to get an upper hand, because when they tell the listing agent, who's probably making 3% on $1 million homes, let's call it $30,000, they're going to make a $30,000 commission check. Okay. Now the buyer is coming at them and saying, hey, we want you to help us too. Now that 30,000 has increased to 60,000. They're hoping that the listing agent is saying, oh, damn, I'm about to make 60 racks on doing one deal. Let's take being a real estate agent out of the equation. If I was to tell anybody listening to this that you're going to get paid $30,000 for a job, and you're like, damn, I want to do that job, right? You're going to take that. Hey, by doing absolutely nothing extra, by doing what you're supposed to be doing anyways, and hosting an open house and trying to sell the home, we're going to double that commission. A lot of people will say, hell yeah. Okay. Granted, right? That's where I think the unethical, if you had that thought in your head that that's the only reason why you would want to do this is to make more money. Yes. To your point, Victor, that's an unethical thought. You're not thinking the best interest of both parties. Okay. The ethical agent, which I'm going to use myself because I've done this before, says, I'd be more than happy to represent you if on this home and any other homes if you do not have an agent that you're working with. I specialize in helping buyers as well. But I can't guarantee just because you're using me on this home that you're going to be the winning offer. You still have to be qualified. You still have to write an offer that you're comfortable with, that is beneficial, you feel is beneficial to you, and that you feel comfortable writing that offer knowing that you know that's what you want to offer to win the home. Okay? And then I'm going to present that offer, whether I'm representing you or not, to the seller. And it's the seller's decision to either accept, counter, or decline, because you may not be the winning offer. If you're okay with that, then I'd be more than happy to help you write an offer on this home. What's unethical about that? You're not getting it. Look, I'm okay not winning, not getting paid the extra, because I'm helping the seller, right? And I want to help you as the buyer too. And I'm going to do everything that I normally would do if I wasn't selling the home to try to make you win the house. But that I can't guarantee that you're going to win the house. Now, here's your point, Victor. We said there's unethical agents. Unfortunately, there are some agents that say, cool, and essentially almost guarantee that person's going to win the home. I'm not going to sit here and say what they do because I don't know.
Right.
But I agree with Lauren on that. There are unethical agents, and sometimes it feels very unfair if you're representing a buyer on a home and you feel your buyer gave a crazy offer, and maybe your offer amount was even higher than what it closed at, and then you look at the transaction and you say, oh, it looks like the agent helped both sides. Yeah. But you can't sit here and assume that they were unethical, because at the end of the day, it's their seller's decision to decide which offer they want to accept to buy their home, regardless of the amount. It's the seller's decision, not the agent's decision.
Correct.
Okay. Now I'm going to tie it into two examples. I'm going to give you an example because it doesn't happen often. I would say I've probably done dual agency maybe 10 times in my career, right? I just did one. In December, I got hired to sell someone's home in the city of Oakley. I went to the appointment, did our thing. We did the MVP process. This home was beautiful. It was the best home in that neighborhood ever sold. Condition-wise, presentation-wise, I put that against anybody. And we opened it for open houses. Well, prior to even getting this listing agreement, I had a set of buyers that I was working with since August. I got the listing in November, or in the end of October, and it came on the market at the end of November. I had buyers since August that I was helping get their credit up, get their income situated, where we got them pre-approved for a certain amount of money. They wanted to look in the areas of East Contra Costa County, Pittsburgh, Antioch, Oakley, Brentwood, right? I showed them over 20 plus homes. One of the homes I showed them was my listing. Guess which home they fell in love with? My listing. Okay. So based on this argument that it shouldn't be done,
what do you say to the client?
What am I supposed to say to my buyer?
Are you supposed to steer them away from it? Oh, let's not offer on that because I can't do a dual agency. I'm scared, Mark. No.
Like
you're not. Yeah,
that's what I'm getting at. So in that case, okay, so here's the case. So based on their argument, I give it away. Oh, you've trusted me since August, customer. I'm the sole person you've been working with. But you know what? I'm unethical. So I'm going to let you work with Victor on this one. What's the difference? Victor's going to do the same process that I was going to do. Right. And guess what? On this deal, we had 3 offers. And my client's offer
was the best.
I'm not even going to say it was the highest. It was just the best terms-wise. And when I presented it to the sellers, I presented them all equally. And we actually counteroffer both offers. And the other counter said no. And my client said yes. And it was their decision. And now they're in that home. Okay, so that's one. Where was the unethics? I presented everything to the seller. All the offers were basically what I said they can expect. I gave the benefits of the type of loans, the type of contingencies, the pros and cons. They liked 2 of the 3 offers. They countered both of them with separate terms. And then their decision at the end of the day was this one said no. And then my client said yes. I didn't force them to say yes. I just presented, hey, if you accept this counteroffer, you have a good shot of winning the deal. And they did. They were okay with the terms. And it wasn't even a financial terms thing. It was more of like a timeline thing. Okay, cool. I've also been where I've done a listing and someone's walked in and wanted to use me. And the reason they wanted to use me is because they walked in not even thinking about buying the home. They just felt they were just being nosy and bored on a weekend. And they walked in and fell in love with the home and was like, I want to buy this home. And I said, cool. Have your agent call me. Oh, I don't have an agent. You help me. I said, sure, I will help you. And the reason they wanted me to help them is because it was a older lady, and she really respected the way how I treated every single person that walked in that home as a potential buyer, whether they were with their agent or not, whether they were male, female, race, religion.
Yeah.
My job was to sell the home. And
right.
She respected that, and she wanted me to be her agent. Okay, cool. We wrote we got 2 offers on that home. They were identical financially, identical term-wise. One was a FHA, one was a conventional. I presented both offers to the homeowners. I said, at the end of the day, this is a little bit less restrictive because there's no FHA appraisal on the conventional loan. However, you're going to get the same amount of money in the same time frame. It's your decision which one you want to go with. And you know what that client said? They said, you're representing that one, right? I said, yeah. They were like, if we choose this one, do you get paid more money? I said, yes, I would get both sides of the commission. They said, choose that one because you're worth every penny.
Boom.
So what was unethical about that?
I don't get it. Because you're worth more money.
Because I'm a good ass agent
to your client, and that's my point. As long as our clients feel like we're worth every penny, they trust us, and they feel like we're ethical, it doesn't matter what.
And I'm supposed to say no. I'm supposed to say, oh no, don't accept that offer because there's people out there that can't handle the separation. And guess what? That person, that family, that offer from that lady that she won the offer, right? Guess who sold her home that she didn't need to sell? I did. And guess what? I double-ended that one too, based on the same reason. Because she said, at the end of the day, when I presented all the offers, she said, you get paid more if I accept your offer, right? I said, yes, you've agreed to pay the buyer side this amount. I'm representing the buyer. She said, take that offer because you're worth every penny.
Boom.
Hey, guess what?
There you go.
Sometimes it is an advantage to the buyer on a dual agency because if that agent has done a good job, then yes, they might have a leg up if they have a buyer for the same property they're selling. Why is that a bad thing? Isn't it our job to put our clients in the best position to win, selling and buying?
That is correct.
So why is it negative if we have both?
It's only negative when it doesn't benefit the agent, the other agent on the other side that lost to that home or has never double-ended a transaction in their life.
And if
that's when it's negative.
And if you're not comfortable doing it because you feel that if you're saying you're not comfortable, and I hate making general statements, but if someone says they're not comfortable doing something, it's not because it's unethical. It's because you're uncomfortable because you don't know how to handle the situation.
That's exactly how I feel.
And the reason you're saying this is because if you handle you feel that if you handle the situation, that down the line, one of those clients, the buyer or seller, may have a thought in their head that said, hey, what Mark did, I think was a little unethical. You know, that means you fear that you're going to do something unethical. I do not have that fear because I do everything by the book. And I cross my T's and dot my I's. And those decisions were ultimately made by the consumer, not by me.
That is correct.
So there's nothing to be ethics worried about.
Yes.
I digress.
I think you just pretty much said it how it needed to be said, Mark. I'm with you 100%.
All right, cool. We're done talking on this damn topic. So, is your agent unethical? Honestly, they're probably not. They're just a little bit unqualified in that decision. So, make sure it's important to make sure you interview agents and find the one that you feel is most qualified to handle your situation, whether it's buying or selling. And you can always reach out to us at the MVP Real Estate. And with that, we look forward to winning with you.